The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending so late on a Friday. Appreciate you joining. We're going to give a couple minutes grace period for others to join, and we'll start in just a couple minutes. I am going to go ahead and unmute everyone. I ask that you do mute your line yourselves. Feel free to chime in if you have questions along the way. If we get too much background noise, I'll have to go ahead and mute everyone, and you can then enter your questions into the chat window.
Donna, can you mute your microphone, please?
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brian Rothery with Project Team. Also joining from an organizer perspective on the phone is Susan Mills, our training manager, and John Harmon, who is leading the implementation from the DGS perspective. So he'll chime in and provide direction along the way. I'm more of the how to do things, and John will chime in with what you can and can't do. So anybody have any questions before we get started? And just to confirm, you're able to see my screen that's got DGS logo on it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great, thanks. All right, so we're going to go through several administrative functions in Project Team, both at the company and organization level and at the project level. Again, feel free to ask questions as we go along. I am assuming that all of you have gone to the Project Team introduction class, so we're not going to talk too much about navigation and terminology. We're just going to focus on these administrative functions. So I'm starting in the My Company space, which if you were to click on your name, underneath there are some options. One of those is My Company. So if I click on that, I see the DGS company space. I'm logged in as John Harmon right now because I'm wanting to see DGS space, not Project Team space. So this is specific to the user that you're logged in as. So obviously all of you being dc.gov users, you'll see this space when you go to My Company. Now, depending on whether you're a company administrator or not, you may see a different list of functions here on the left side. So if you are not a company administrator, all you'll see is company details. If you think that you should be a company administrator and you're not seeing all these options, just reach out to John and he can grant you that those rights if needed. On the company detail page, I'm just seeing general information about the organization. Nothing that any of you will ever need to edit here. John will manage this if for some reason anything needs to change. If I keep moving down on this list, users, this is really the only menu option that any of you would probably need to interact with. This is where you can go in and set up new users for DGS. You will not set up external users here. This is just for internal DC.gov users, and that will include your client agencies. So if I want to add a user, I would simply go over to the new button on the right side. It gives me a warning, just letting me know that I'm adding a company user for DGS. I would always want to choose standard here. Those of you that have administrator are the ones that can see all these menu options on the left. All your end users will be just standard type users. You can see the red highlighted fields. Those are the required fields. So I need to enter at a minimum the first and last name and the work email address.
Brian, I want to make a comment here, if you don't
Sure.
mind. For those of you, if you are adding a DGS user, they must have a DC government email address. Everything in Project Team is done in the user group. It sorts by company based on the domain in your email address. So if you're adding somebody in your company and they don't have a DC email address, it's not going to go to DC. It's going to create their own company, or you won't be able to do it here. Okay? Everybody, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, did you say this is for your client agency too?
Yes, because DC.gov is one domain, everybody with the DC.gov email address will go into the same company. That's why you'll notice in the details, it says Government of the District of Columbia. It doesn't say DGS, although we do use the DGS logo.
So DCPS is K-12. Does that work or not?
With the K-12s, we will most likely be able to set DCPS up as their own. But I believe they're the only agency that has that nuance.
Okay, that's what, okay.
Okay,
That's
great.
it, Brian. Thank you.
Yep. Once you click save here, what it does, it'll send an email to the user that you've just created, and they'll actually go up and set their own password. So there's no password set that you need to do for them. All the password management is done by the end user. So if they need to reset their password, that's done through the system by the end user. If they forget their password, again, that's done by them. Nothing you need to manage from an administrative perspective. If I go back to just the user list, I can see that I can scroll through here and see all the users. Over on the right side of each row, there's a down arrow that gives me options of what I can perform for that user. So if I were to, I don't want to open anybody's information. So if I were to look at John's, I have the option to edit. So if I wanted to edit information, any information about John, if he changed his phone number, I could do that. If I want to log in as that user, so this is great for troubleshooting. If somebody calls me and says, hey, I can't see this form, it's not letting me workflow, I can't edit the field I need to edit, whatever the case may be, I can go here to the user section in my company. I can find that user. I can log in as that user. As soon as I do that, in this case, John Harmon would get an email that says, hey, the administrator has just logged in as you. And I'll do that. I'll just do that for this individual here. If I log in as that person, notice I'll see at the top of my screen that I'm temporarily logged in as Derek Johnson. So I'm seeing everything the same way that Derek would see it. And I can troubleshoot their issue. And as soon as I'm done, I just hit that switch back button, logs me out of Derek and back in as, in this case, John Harmon.
Specific to DGS, that's where you guys will be able to go in for people in your programs that are on vacation or unavailable, and you need to acknowledge a workflow or approve something for them, kind of like the escalations or the handoffs in PASS. You'll be able to log in as them and do it, and it'll all be recorded.
Is that where would we be able to switch user, or like if we have a switch in project manager, does that happen here, John, or does that happen
That
centrally with?
happens elsewhere, but that will be included in this training
Okay.
because you guys will be able to do that yourself.
All right. Excellent.
So the last thing I'll just mention here in that same pull down on the right side, I can deactivate a user. So if somebody leaves the organization, I want to get them deactivated so they can't log in anymore. Just go over there, hit the deactivate button. You can see up here in the log, it doesn't delete their record. I can always check this box to show deactivated accounts, but it does remove their access so they can't log in anymore. Any questions on users before I move down? Okay, going to invitations. Right now, there are currently no invitations. The way Project Team works is it collaborates with other organizations that may be Project Team companies. For example, one of your general contractors that you use, Smoot Construction, is a Project Team user. If they were to invite you to a project, or if you were to invite them to join you on the project, that invitation would be seen by the administrators here in this section, where you could accept that invitation and start adding users to that project.
We generally will not accept invitations from outside companies. They'll accept ours. We own the system. Bill, those of you that are involved in the one project we have with Smoot that's being merged will understand this better. But so don't respond to anything here. Remember, we have procurement requirements and discussions with bidders and things like that. You don't want to deal with that. So you're welcome to look here, but don't do anything.
Okay, moving down to projects. This is simply a project list of all the projects that DGS has initiated in Project Team. There's nothing to do from here. You can't navigate into projects from here, just a project list with project numbers that you can search through. I'm just going to touch on these next few. Nothing you should be doing in these modules either. Company form types. This is where we actually do company level configuration. So there's system forms in Project Team that you use. There's custom forms that have been created that will all be say they're created by John Harmon. These are all the configuration that's adopted by any project that's created for DGS. So it's all your typical forms, fields, templates. So if there's ever a time we would want to globally add a field to a particular form that DGS uses, one of the configuration administrators would come in here and do that. So again, anything that you think that you may want in here should always go through John so that he can manage any configuration change, because it does have impact on other things that we've done in the system, like merge templates and reports. So don't go into company fields and just forms and just add fields.
So John, if you wanted specialty reports per division, is that down further? Like, or is that would this be done with you in this location?
This is the actual forms, like the contracts form and the change orders and things like that. Reports are in a different section.
Okay.
You have the ability, specialty reports that you want to do for your program or your projects, you have the ability to do them at the project level. You also have the ability to make changes to forms at the project level, which we'll get to in the next section. So all of this stuff you're seeing over here, the company fields and company reports, as we're going through it, think of this as the portfolio level. You guys are really going to focus more on the next step, which is the project level.
So, for example, the form that Tiffany sent out about when you visit projects, they want to fill out certain information. That type of form would potentially get created here for everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have that's already in here. Actually, we have created that. But yes,
okay,
we would do that here, and then that would roll out to all projects. Whereas if you had a modernization that had a particular issue that you wanted to track just on that project and you needed a form to do it, you'd be able to do that at that project level and just have that form show up on that project. not the whole company.
And then I can export that form into a Word version or whatever. Is that possible for these forms?
It's possible for any record in here. You haven't taken
Okay.
Oh, that's right. You were in the pilot group, so yeah, you probably haven't gone back to the introduction. So yeah, we'll get you up to speed. But yeah, any form you can spit out.
All right.
Okay, so I drilled into that job site activity report, and you can see there's a lot of fields on there. These fields are also listed here at the company field level. So, if I click there, I'll see a list of all the fields and what forms they're used on. Again, nothing you would do there. I'm going to go ahead and move down to company reports. So the reports module that shows up in the main screen is very similar to the reports module you'll see at the project level, which we'll look at in a little bit. The difference here is this is where I define company level reports. So anything in this unpublished list is something that's currently being worked on. It's not available at the project level yet. As soon as a report gets finalized and is ready to be published, we simply drag and drop that down into the published folder. As soon as you do that, that then becomes available for all projects for DGS. So that's if you ever need to update that report, you update it in one place, and all projects across your organization get those updates immediately. So we'll show you.
By you, he means me. Updates the company reports.
Right. So you'll see as I show you later, there's some of these here prefixed with PM. We'll see those at the project level when we get there. Business directory is simply other organizations that you've already connected with in Project Team. And then Company Connect is just the whole global database of all companies inside a project team, so that if you ever wanted to go out and find the contractor that you want to connect with, you can do it this way. And I'll also show you at the project level where you would do that, and it would just kind of auto connect with the company information. So as John mentioned earlier, all of our connections are based on your email domain. So, even if you enter a company name by its initials instead of by its full name, we're going to find the correct company and connect it based on that email domain. There's not going to be a bunch of different versions of the same company because of misspellings or abbreviations. Any questions here at the company level before I move to a project? Okay, so we're going to talk about creating a project. So up here in the top header, as you learned in your project team introduction, if I click on that, I'll see a list of all the projects that I have access to, and then I can just choose one and navigate right to that project. If I wanted to create a new project, I would click the View All Projects at the bottom. And up in the top right, there's a New Project button. If I click that, I always want to clone my project template. I don't want to ever create a new project over here. It's not going to pick up
Brian,
all the... Yep.
You can skip this one.
Okay.
They're not going to be creating projects. That all goes through BDI.
Okay. Easy enough then. So let's go into a project space. And look at really this project administration window down here. So this is hidden from everybody except for project administrators, which are going to be all of you. So your end users will not see this lower section. We're just going to go through each of these modules. Feel free to ask questions. Some of them I'll skip over relatively quickly, as some of them are items you don't really need to deal with. So first, project details. This will be created at some degree with the person that creates the project. So when BDI creates the project, they'll be putting in the project name, number. You can come in here and edit. If it's not complete, you can go ahead and fill in the rest of the information. Project address. This project email address might need be something you need to share with your project team. They don't have access to this project details area, so they can't get this email address. If they do want to email to their project, they would just need this address. So if you haven't taken the introduction class, then there you'll learn that emails can be forwarded to your project and those records shared without having to re-enter any of that. If I go across these tabs here at the top, we'll have legal parties. Some of this information is used on merge templates or reports where you can identify your owner information, architect, contractor, and other for another contact. Obviously, you won't use currency exchange. This last tab, integration configuration, this is specific for your integration with P6. So we would need to come in here and enter your P6 project ID for this project to map to the integration that's currently going on with P6 to pull in the proper tasks. So that's an important step for those that integration to trigger properly. Just moving across the list here, share groups. The actual groups will be pre-populated from the template, so there's no need for you to ever go up here and click new and add new share groups, and you shouldn't do that. But you will need to, as users are added to the project, you'll need to add them to the appropriate share group, or multiple groups in some cases might be appropriate. So for example, as I add the project manager in here, I would want to go down to the project manager group, click on it, click add the appropriate person.
And will that be done per team, John? Would we have the ability to like have a schools team, have a whatever DHS team in this group as well, or is this just all project managers we're thinking?
Well, there is a share group currently for each user. There's an APM share group. There's a EPM share group. So the appropriate person really should be in the share group. But, if you have a PM who's working with another PM and you want to put two in there, you can put two in there. But there's a senior PM group for your senior PMs.
Keep in mind, this is specific to this project. So we're in the CPO training project. So this is, this isn't a global view. This is a project. And I think you had asked the question earlier that, if your project manager goes on vacation for 2 weeks, or if your project manager gets replaced, the procedure there would be just to, go into project manager. If Susan left, I'd click remove, and then I would add whatever the new project manager's name was.
Okay, great.
And then by doing that, they inherit the access to all the proper forms and fields with proper security access, the workflow notifications based on this project manager share group.
And that's a key point for you guys. The share groups are where the security lies within project team. So in Prolog, you guys saw users, and we set the user security groups in the background when we set up their accounts. We gave them a type. In project team, it's by share group. So if you put somebody in the wrong share group, you give them access to things they aren't supposed to see, or keep them from seeing things that they are. So that's why we've broken it out so that there's a budget share group. So the BDI group goes in the budget share group. So everything budget needs to see and everything that they need the access to do, that security set up in the budget share group by their name being in there, they can do it. So the share groups are very important that you get the right people and the right ones on your project. Now, PMs are responsible for setting this up for their project when they get it. With the project creation in the beginning, we will set the EPM and the admins and probably the budget and finance people and put the project manager in. But it's up to the project manager to go add their client agency representative and their APM if they have one, and whoever their senior PM is, and their general contractor and all that stuff. That's their responsibility.
Hey, any other questions on share groups?
Nope.
All right, moving across to customized forms. I'll just touch on this quickly. This is similar to what we looked at the company level, where I can configure a company form that's used across all the projects. This is for making configuration changes at just a project level. This should always go through John as well. You shouldn't be adding fields in here without approval, but if a project for some reason has a unique requirement that you need to track another field on a particular form or a whole new form, that can be accommodated at the project level here. But again, that should be going through the change management process that John is leading. Cost periods, you'll need to establish cost periods for your project. These are assigned at like for a payment application. Typically, these could be from the first day of the month to the last. So I would, maybe May 2020 is my label, May 1st to May 31st. And then I would add as many cost periods as I need for this particular project. So if it's a 12-month project, I can go ahead and put 12 months of cost periods in there. And then I'm done with the setup.
And can you go back in and modify them after they're done? Say, for example, you wanted to bill twice in a month. It sometimes happens at certain stages in a job. You can just go back in and modify 2 cost periods in that month.
You can, as long as your dates don't cross. So if I come in here and edit this to the 15th, and then add a new one that says the 16th to the 31st, I could do that, yes.
Okay.
But it's not going to allow, if I left this one as is and then tried to add a second that was also in May, it would not let me create it because the dates crossed.
Okay.
I know legal and finance and all those people got involved at one point, and we're trying to stop the 2 billings in a month. So just make sure you have that conversation.
We don't none of us like doing it. It's like there's, I'm just trying to understand flexibility if there is any.
Yep. So once
If
you
you
have
believe once it's locked, you can't, but until then you can change it.
Yeah, once you have your cost period created, if you do need to come back and edit, you just click the arrow, edit. The only restriction is if I've already used this cost period, I won't be able to delete it if it's been used on a document somewhere. I can still edit the dates, but I can't delete the actual instance.
The other thing to note on cost periods is if you haven't set them up on your project, your vendor will not be able to enter their pencil copy invoice for processing because they have to select the cost period. It's a required field. So make sure when your projects go in, somebody goes in and sets up the cost period. We have the same thing in Prolog, but I know the PMO people used to go in there and add them when they were missing. But,
that's one of the things I was being asked about around the billing because the administration projects are the first projects that are moving across. So like the B&Ds and the McKissick's of the world, those people are going to upload their bills in here for the initial kind of review. Who puts them in? Like is because they're what? Sorry?
They are responsible for that.
No, who sets the cost periods for those? Because it's they're
the project manager.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, I know before PMO was doing a lot of the stuff in the admin projects, but it's going to have to go to the PM responsible for the contracts moving forward.
Okay. I have no idea who the PM is for all those contracts, to be honest with you.
I know who it is. I think I'm talking to him. We can talk about that later.
It's
Okay.
Brian.
Excellent.
All right, moving across to account codes. Never edit anything in here. I'll show you real quick what's in here. So we've developed a code structure that comes over with the template. This code structure is what's utilized by BDI when they upload the budgets. They construct these account codes based on those segments with their descriptions. And these are used across all the financial documents to allow us to report on any of these elements that I can pivot our financial reports on.
Since Cassandra's not in this training, I'll let you guys in on a secret. These are your funding attributes. So for those of you that are always looking for funding attributes, these are them. That's what that number is right there. So that's all the parts and pieces to the funding attribute. Don't touch them, don't change them, don't do anything, because that's all at a BDI level, but each project will have the funding attributes and the available funding within the project.
Ooh, good info.
All right.
All right, pick list option sets. This isn't utilized. Nothing you'll need to do in here. We manage all of our pick lists at the company level. Maybe an occasion where you have a project need for that, but there are no project level pick lists set up at this time. So click in there, you just see a blank list. Workflows are in here. Again, this is something that you can come look at them. We wouldn't want you to change them unless that goes through John. Some good things that you can get in here, like if I want to look at the PCO workflow, if I'm just not thinking that the right person is getting the notifications, I can come in here and look at the steps of the configuration and say, hey, at step 1, the project manager share group is who receives the notification at step 1. So if the person that I want to get that isn't getting it, it's probably because they're not in the project manager share group. So I'd go back out to the share groups, add that person to project manager, and then they'll start getting them. So, and then when I go to step 2, the executive program manager should be getting at this step. So again, I'd want to verify that that person is in that share group if they're saying they're not getting the notification. If they're not getting it and they're not a project manager, that would be when you'd want to reach out to John and say, hey, I think we need to add something to this workflow. It's not, doesn't seem to be going to the right people. And he can work through that with you. But again, nothing you need to edit here, but it is good for troubleshooting. You can look in here and see what exactly it's doing, who's getting the notification to take the action, and who's getting copied along the way. All right, distribution list. So this is just like a distribution list in an email software. If I wanted to create a new list and say, hey, this is Brian's list, maybe it's a meeting minute distribution list, whatever's appropriate, I can then just add members from the project, or I can add groups. So if I came through here, just added a few options, then either all these individuals, or as I mentioned, you can add share groups here. So everybody that's in the architect engineer share group, and these 3 individuals will all get distributed that form whenever I share it to Brian's list distribution list. And then the last one here, permission checker. This is great for troubleshooting as well. Some cases when somebody says, I can't see it, should I be able to see it? I can go in and just type that person's name in here. So I'll just put my own name in as an external user. And for each of the forms we have in the system, so we looked at the job site activity report earlier. If I expand that, I'll see all the fields on that particular form and what this person's access is to all those fields. So in this case, I have read-write access to all the fields on the job site activity report. So you might go in here and they say, hey, I can't see this date field. They might have no access right here under access, and you would then want to figure out, again, get with John and say, hey, should this share group be able to see this particular field? And then if he agrees, he can make that security adjustment. Any questions on permission checker? All right, just a couple things down under my company setup. First is users. When you click on users, this is going to show you just DGS users or DC.gov users. So in most cases, your client agencies will be in here as well. Now, we see a lot of green here. These are all the project administrators. many of these should probably not be project administrators. So this toggle button basically determines whether they can see this whole project administrative section at the bottom of the project homepage. So,
and remember, this is on a per project level. This is not on a company level.
correct.
So if you have 2 PMs on a project and one's in charge of the project and the other one's a more junior person, you can make one a project administrator and one not, or you can have somebody be a project administrator on one project but not on another project. So it's up to you guys.
So this is where I want to go to set multiple people as project administrators or an individual as a project administrator on a project. If I wanted to take an individual, so let's just say a new project administrator has been identified for DGS and we want to go add them to 100 projects, I would do that at the company level. So if I go back to my company and to users and I choose the appropriate user here, I'll see a list, and that was a bad example. They can only see one project. Let me grab John here. I'll see a list of all the projects they're currently have been assigned to. And here's that same project administrator title. So in this case, I want to make John administrator on a bunch of projects. I can do that right from this screen, just scrolling through each of the projects. Okay. The last thing, invitations, just like we saw at the company level, but this is where I can actually invite another company. So if that organization, and the only time that I would want to do this is if I don't know a user that I want to invite. In most cases, you probably know the project manager from that contractor that you want to invite. You would just, as you learned in introduction, you could just go to the directory and invite them from there. You wouldn't need to send the company an invitation. So my guess would be rarely, most likely never would you ever use this invitations section.
Yeah, for you guys, this is generally where if a contractor was using this system, they'd send out invitations to bid on a project or something like that. So I just wouldn't bother to use that section, do it all through the directory.
Okay, any questions about any of these project administration tools? Okay, we're going to look at a couple other things here at the project level, merge templates and reports. So if I go over to forms and I'll just start to type merge, I'll get merge templates. Here are all the merge templates that are available from the template for the project. So if I were to open up one of these, we'll just use meeting record as an example. I can see that the merge template is called meeting record. Its form that's associated with is meetings. So if I want to print meetings, I'll have the option to print them in this meeting record. And here's the actual merge template that was created. So if I were to download that, I'll see in this Word file, there's a bunch of tags associated with fields. So, most of this is all just hard-coded into the form, and anything with a tag is inserted from the record that you're printing from. Again, all these templates are managed through John, so if you want changes, you can work through him, but to insert those tags, I go back here to this screen, I can hit this get merge tags. Here's all the fields on a meeting document, and then I can just copy the appropriate tag, paste it into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, any of those formats are supported to create an output of a form that's needed. So if you ever have a project-specific need of an output that's required because you need wet signatures for some reason, then you can work with John to get that merge template created.
We have an unlimited services agreement with project teams, so most of those we'll send to the company. So just let me know if you need them.
So you should never need a merge template. All right, let me switch down to reports. So now I'm looking at reports at the project level instead of the company level. I can see I have 3 folders here. My access only, obviously these are ones only I can see. If I'd expand that, I don't have any here currently. My company access, these are company forms. I'll see 2 different folders here. Here's the standard reports that we saw in the published folder at the company level. If I ever wanted to tweak one of these at the project level, I can, if this one, hey, this was almost got everything I need, but this project manager wants one more unique element, I can clone this. Say I want to move it down into the custom, or maybe I just want to move it up to my access only. Put my initials at the end so I can delete this in a bit, but I'll clone that. It creates a copy of that report up here in the my access only, and then I can go in and edit the attributes of this report to show different data columns or different filters or whatever I might need different for that particular report. These reports, any of them, whether they're my access company, can be scheduled. So once I've created this this revision to the change order validation report, I can always schedule this. If it's something I want to see every week, I can click on the menu button here, schedule the report, and then I'll go through this wizard of a few tabs. Give it a name, what the export type is, when I want it to run, how often, any filters, and then finally in the recipients who I want it emailed to, and then that email will just be sent as scheduled.
This is where you guys, you EPMs, can get your PMs to set up the schedule for their weekly project updates. So it automatically gets reported. You could have them automatically sent to you if you wanted, or something else, but nobody can say they forgot if they all have them scheduled.
Is this so with dashboards? I see you have reports and dashboards. Are we? Is the dashboard still going to be rolled out later, John, or are we in a place to roll out the dashboard at the same time?
The MicroStrategy dashboard is still up. The dashboard parts in here, we haven't created any yet because we don't have a lot of reports. The functionality for the dashboard is basically you create a report and dashboard. It's the idea is to get the projects in, and then we're, like I talked about before, we'll circle back with everybody and what reports do you want? Come to us if I can use this information, and then we'll start creating those for you guys as users. We have our standard stuff in the background that you guys don't care about, but you guys will be able to say, we want this, I want this for this program, and that'll be created, and you'll be able to use it. Or you guys are all in admin training, you guys can go in and do it yourself.
John, I'm coming to you.
If you do want to try your own,
I'll give you Brian's phone number, Brian. So Brian, meet Brian. You guys will talk a lot.
If you do want to try your own, at least see what the capabilities are, you hit this plus sign up here. There's 3 different types of reports you can create. A simple express report is really just walks you through a wizard. Really, anybody can create those without any prior training. Advanced reports get a little more complicated, but there's a great series of videos and quick reference guides on our help menu that can walk you through it. And then dashboards basically just allows you to pull either existing reports into windows or tiles. You can, add links to webcams. You can add graphs, what a typical dashboard would have. So if you're bored one day, those are fun to play with.
All right.
Brian, we will have. I was kidding. We will have meetings, and I know we've talked at length in the past about some of the reports and some of the things we could do. So we will set stuff up, and probably a lot of it will go across to the whole company.
Okay.
Anybody else here, Brian?
I'm famous for talking on mute. I can go hours talking on mute. Just mentioning this last all user access folder that all users on the project have access to, so even your external users. Within that is a system folder. These are all out-of-the-box system reports that we have. There are some dashboards in there if you want to look at those. And then again, just like the reports up there, you can clone these, move them down into custom reports, make them available across the project as well. Any questions?
You guys will also find that the log view for most of these records is more what you're looking for in most cases than actual structured reports. This has a very, very significant log function already. Yeah. So like go to PCO. Yeah, perfect. This is already here every time you click on PCOs, and you can modify these columns to fit the ones that you want, get rid of ones you don't want, search them right within the columns, all that right here. And then you can print this log out right from here in the PCO. So you don't actually have to go in and run a PCO report. You just structure the log the way you want to see it, and hit print every time you need it.
Excellent.
And that works for your vendors too. They can do the exact same thing. So when they're coming to your OACs and you want to see PCO logs and change order logs and all those things, RFI logs, they can print these things out very quickly and bring them with them, or just attach them in the meeting.
Is there a way of like if we're, obviously our vendor is going to put in a lot of these. Is there a way of tracking internally if we have some stuff that the vendor doesn't see?
There are you referring to PCOs?
Yeah, so like sometimes we want to track certain costs or risks on a project and a dollar value, which is basically, it's a PCO, but we haven't gotten a PCO from a contractor at that stage. And I may not want them to see the information I'm putting in. Is it possible to have internally our own, like you got the overall PCOs, but then you may have some that you're tracking yourself?
That technically, what you're talking about would be done in the risk log, which does exist in here. So yeah, there is a space to do that. Only because the PCO log becomes part of the project record, there's terminology.
Yeah, okay.
But the other thing that's in here is, yes, there are fields on the PCO itself that the vendor can't see, those review fields and entitlement discussion and IG costs and all that.
Yeah.
So you would be able to add them into your log here, but they wouldn't be able to see them in their log or on the form.
Okay.
So you have to be careful with that if you're spitting out the logs from a project team, that you're not spitting out all that information in your view.
Yeah, we need to stress that for everyone's training.
Yep.
Yeah, and as a reminder, that security is enforced across our system. So if a vendor can't see a particular field at the form level, that's enforced at the log level. That's enforced if they're running a report. That's enforced if they're printing a merge template. Those fields will just be blank or not available to them across the system. So, and just another comment to your question is, keep in mind everything's shared based. So if you don't share it with that vendor, it remains internal. So if I don't choose either a group that they're within or themselves as an individual down here, I don't have to worry about them seeing this data.
Okay.
If they're not in this list, they don't see it. All right, I think I got through all the material that we intended to cover today. Is there any questions before we close?
Brian, did you not see my comments back to you? Other Brian, sorry.
Sorry.
I did. I thought we.
How to correct the change orders and bad contracts.
Oh, okay. I
Agreement
saw the
spelled down at the
reports, but I
bottom.
didn't see that printed on my second page. It only had 2 rows on it, so I didn't see this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, correcting bad contracts and change orders. So.
The reason I bring this up while Brian's getting this set up in here is we all know that there's problems with PCO's change orders and contracts coming over from Prolog. We know there were problems in Prolog. I guarantee most of them haven't been fixed, which means the problems are going to migrate to project teams. So there are, because you guys are admins for your programs, most of you, the idea is that you're going to help your people fix this stuff. You're going to be their resource to help out within your program. So I've asked Brian to add in here just how to fix a bad contract and how to fix a bad change order.
Yeah, and a point to make here is when we migrate these over. So here I'm looking at a change order. After the migration, these change orders will be approved, which means that they're locked down. There's no editing a change order after the migration. That's required because we can't migrate the pay applications until the change order has been approved. So everything that's migrated on the change order level is locked down. If you want to make a change, you really need to create a new change order to make the appropriate adjustment to the value. So again, if I'm out here, I just want to create a new change order, select the appropriate contract, and then on this change detail tab is where I would, adjust my pricing. So if I needed to, reduce the amount, I can put a negative value. If I needed to reduce 10,000.
You guys are going to zero out the bad contract. So you're essentially going to duplicate the contract in negative and approve it, or change order, or whatever it is. You're going to, so you could really clone it and then do this, but you're going to create a negative, approve that, and that's going to zero out the money in the budgets. So don't do any partial reductions or, I need to take 10 grand off, so I'm going to do negative 10 grand. No, you need to take the contract and create a negative version of it, or your budgets will be screwed up. You're on mute.
So that's a good point. I'll back up and show that as a clone. So let's find one with some value on it. So if I wanted to reduce this 100,000, I would choose the option top right, clone. It's copying all the information over and the change details. I'd want to create the new line item. Negative. I didn't pay attention to the number of days, but we'll assume there was 20 days on there as well.
And you'd want to put in the title that you're correcting an error or something like that, whatever it is you're doing, put in there so it makes sense.
Choose appropriate account code and line items.
That, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, that budget line item Those are the line items that are in the budget breakdown workbook from the perf and project statement. So that is how you're going to, by selecting those in the contract and change order level, it applies finances to be able to track budget versus actual.
So that's connected with the CIP forms, basically
Yes,
the budget book itself.
When you do that perf workbook where you enter the total number and it breaks it down into all the lines, those line item names are matched in this drop down list. And this is how you'd say, okay, I'm covering this out of commissioning. I'm covering this out of construction, this out of whatever it is. So that's that link. So in your contracts and your change orders, if you don't have this budget line item selected, it's going to break the link between your budget and your finances. You're muted again, Brian.
I wasn't talking that time, so I wasn't muted.
I saw the cursor move, sorry.
So I saved that one. If I go back to my log, I'll see that new. I just filter this to closet.
What that just did was it released the $100,000 back to the project budget so that you can enter the new contract. That's why you had to do that.
All right, is that all you wanted to see there, John, or do you want to go into anything else?
No, I think that's fine. That's how you get rid of the old one. So now you're at a zero slate. So essentially, if you only had 2 contracts in here, you've got one for $100,000, you just corrected it. Now you're at $0. You go in and you create the new contract with the right information and approve that one. And then your contract is fixed. Same thing with change orders. So it's very simple. It seems hard, but it's take the bad one, create a negative version, save it, put in the corrected one.
All right, anybody have any questions? We have 3 minutes left.
No, I don't think so. I'm sure once we get going and we get actually doing it, we'll pause the questions. But
Yep, we'll be here to support you.
I have a feeling my desk will be pretty crowded if we ever get back into the office.
6 feet away, John.
All right,
This is excellent. This is really good, guys. It's looking forward to using this.
great. We're excited to finally get it to you. So appreciate you hanging in there till 5 on a Friday. Hope you all have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, Ryan.
Thanks.
Brian, I know you're Butler. I know you're very excited. You know, we need some help with the migration stuff this weekend. If you want to learn more, you're welcome to join us for migrating.
I'm very, very, very busy.
Okay, I see. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Sorry again for the late night. Thank you, Brian. That was great. Thank you, Brian Butler. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Have a-
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Brian and Doc.